Kylie. Today I'm going to be doing a book outlet haul from the Boxing Day sale. I think I ended up with 33 books. The Boxing Day sale, if you don't know, on Book Outlet, every year they do a sale where if you spend a certain amount of money, you get a certain amount of money off. So I think if you spend $100, you get $40 off, I want to say. And all of their books are already discounted at a super low price, so that's how I ended up with 33 books. I've broken them up into categories a little bit, one of them being anthologies, one of them being sports books, because I got quite a few football books, short books for readathons and things, fantasy books, and then just everything else in one giant pile. So without further ado, let's get started. I got 3 really short books that I thought would be really good for readathons. I don't like to spend a full amount of money on a really short book that's going to take a couple of hours to read because I feel like it's kind of a waste. But if it's around $2, I don't have any trouble with it whatsoever. The first book that I got is Binti by Needy Okorafor. I don't know how you say that name, but this is more of a sci-fi book. I've heard a lot of good things about it, but I don't know a whole lot about it. It's kind of hard to know too much about a book that's only like less than 100 pages without kind of giving it away, but it sounds from the description that it is about a girl who goes to basically a university in space, so it's a sci-fi sort of book. The next book that I have is The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. This is another one that's only around 100 pages, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but the back says something about a British citizenship test and how it takes a turn that is unexpected. I know that Books and Lala really likes that book, so I'm guessing it's probably pretty twisted, and I'm pretty excited to get to it. The book that I got that is a little bit longer, around 200 pages, is The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. I don't know much about this one. I've heard a lot of good things about it. The back says something about 4 very different lives are about to become entangled, and then it talks a little bit about some of the difficulties that the people in the book are going through. So I think it's going to be an interesting and fast read. I believe it is a series, and it is a debut novel. The next set of books that I got are football-related books. The first one being Backfield Boys, a mystery set in black and white by John Feinstein. This obviously has to do with football, but also has to do with racial biases. The next 3 that I got are all from the same author, and they look like they could sort of be in a series, but I don't think that they follow the same people. The first one is Until Friday Night by Abby Glines, After the Game, and Under the Lights. Obviously all about football, but also about some of the difficulties that people have that you can't necessarily see on the surface. My next category is anthologies. I only got 2 anthologies, but I don't read a whole lot of them, so I wanted to pick a few up. The first one is Flying Lessons and Other Stories. It seems from the description that the way that these stories are connected are in that they are diverse, not necessarily the subject matter within them. And the next anthology that I got is what I'm currently reading. It is called Because You Love to Hate Me, and it is 13 different villain origin stories. And I also thought that it was kind of interesting because it's in collaboration with 13 booktubers as well. So it'll be the author's little short story, and then it'll be the booktuber's reaction to it, sort of. Some of them are more like essay-style reactions, some of them are just kind of silly, some are more stories, but it is kind of interesting, and I think it's really cool that they did collaborate with people on BookTube for this book. The next book that I got is one in a series that I think pretty much everybody but myself has read, and that is Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. Ever since the newer book came out, either a year or 2 ago, people have been talking a little bit more about this series again, and I still have not gotten to it, but it sounds like it is about a girl who can destroy things with her touch. The next book that I got is The Vampire Diaries by L.J. Smith. I don't know much about it. I don't need to know much about it other than there are vampires in it, and I am curious to read it then. And this is the first 2 books, The Awakening and The Struggle. I have never watched the TV show, and I have never read any of the books, so I'm excited to see what they're about. The next book that I got is Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow. This one is a Snow White retelling, more specifically, I believe, the evil queen in Snow White. I've heard super mixed reviews about this one, so I'm really curious to see what I think. The next book is one that I've already read on either audio or an ebook, and I didn't own a copy of it. It is The Dazzling Heights by Catherine McGee. This is the second book in the series. The first one is called The Thousandth Floor. The description of the thousandth floor, there is a tower that is 1,000 floors high. Basically, the higher your status, the higher up in the tower you live, and it is a sci-fi world focused a lot in technology and status. Then somebody ends up dying near the end of that one, and it goes into this one. There's a third book that I have not read yet, but I would like to get my hands on it. I really enjoyed the first two, so I'm going to try and buy them as I find them for a good price. The next book is another one that I've already read but didn't have a copy of, and that is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. Enchantment of Ravens is about a girl named Isabel who is an artist. She is hired by a fairy to paint a portrait of him, and she paints the portrait with something that fairies see as weakness. She paints him with sorrow in his eyes. As with most young adult fantasy, there is a love element to it, and I really enjoyed the book. There were super mixed reviews about it when it first came out, but now this author has come out with another book, which I also have here, and people are kind of obsessed with that one now. I also have Margaret Rogerson's newest book, Sorcery of Thorns. This one has to do with magical grimoires. I don't know a lot more about it, but I do know that I really enjoyed An Enchantment of Ravens, so I wanted to give this one a shot. I've heard better things about this one than I had about Enchantment of Ravens, but I really enjoyed that one, so I think I'll for sure enjoy this one. The next book that I got is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This is another one that I've heard super mixed reviews about, but I've been curious to read it. I love the cover of the paperback. The regular cover is really beautiful too, but I really like the green on this one. In this story, there's a girl named Alice whose grandmother writes fairy tales and always is telling some sort of tall tale. Her grandmother dies. She finds out that maybe her stories weren't as fictional as she thought they were. The next book that I got is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. That's all I really need to know about it. The last time I heard of a book being a Beauty and the Beast retelling, it was A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I absolutely am obsessed with still, so I'm hoping that this gives me, if not similar vibes, at least a similar sense of love for it. The next book that I got is Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. I've heard so many good things about her books. I'm not really sure what this one is about, aside from it being fantasy and lots of political intrigue, from what I've heard about the majority of her books. My last stack of books is all of the miscellaneous books that I wasn't really sure what category to put them into. The first one is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This is a Christmas Carol retelling. I plan to read it closer to Christmas time, so I'm going to have to make sure that I have nothing going on at that time so I can get to this book this year. The next book that I got is The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. This is an adult thriller. I have heard so many good things about Ruth Ware's thrillers, and I haven't read any yet, but I was super excited to find this one on Book Outlet. She came out with a book last year, I believe, called The Turn of the Key that everybody has been raving about, and since I saw this on there, this will be my first Ruth Ware that I get to. The back of the book gives absolutely no giveaway as to what the book is about, so I'm going to have to go into it blind. The next book that I got is A Madness So Discreet by Mindy McGinnis. This book is about a pregnant woman who lands herself in an insane asylum, and then she meets a criminal psychologist who wants her to be his assistant in finding a murderer. I am a psychology major, and I'm super interested in anything psychology based, and I'm really excited to get to this book. The next book that I got is another one that I have read already and didn't previously own, and that is My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Warga. In this book, there's a girl named Azel who is obsessed with plotting her own suicide. She has one problem though, she's not sure if she can follow through with it by herself, so she meets a boy online who is also in the process of, I guess, getting courage to commit suicide. They decide to be basically partners in crime and hold one another accountable for their plans. But the closer they get, the harder it seems like it's going to be for them to follow through, and they're maybe not sure that they want to die anymore. Next book that I got is By Your Side by Casey West. It's just a contemporary romance, young adult. I've never read anything by Casey West. I don't need to know much about it. I'm sure it's probably pretty predictable, just a YA romance, but I like to read them in between some of my less happy thrillers and fantasies to kind of get me in a happy mood. The next book that I got is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I've read tons of Christina Lauren's other adult romance books, and this one doesn't actually look like it is as appealing by the cover, but I have loved all of their other works, and I am hoping that I love this one as well. The next book that I got is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. I have read this book as well, and didn't previously own it, but really enjoyed it when I read it. This book follows Alex, a girl who, at the beginning of the book, you know that she murdered somebody, and she has no remorse for it whatsoever. Later on in the book, she becomes really good friends with the preacher's kid. Nobody obviously knows about the murder that she committed, but it kind of examines the good and evil that everybody can have inside them, and she's kind of a morally gray character, being that she can kill somebody with no remorse whatsoever, but it kind of gives you a deeper look into why she wouldn't feel bad about it and how she can still be a good person despite that. The next book that I got is Girls with Sharp Sticks by Suzanne Young, the author of The Program, which I have read before and really liked. In this book, there is an academy for girls that it's basically training them to be well behaved. And then obviously, as with all creepy academy settings, there is some sort of secret being held from the girls, and you have to read the book to find out what it is. The next book is Dumpling by Julie Murphy. I believe this one is about a plus-size main character in like a beauty competition setting. I've never had any interest in reading this book before, and then I read the book Our Stories, Our Voices, which had a story from Julie Murphy that I thought was really funny and really well written, and now I want to give her book a try. It is also a Netflix film that I might watch after I read the book if I really like it. The next book I got is Challenger Deep by Neal Shusterman. This one does not give very much about what it is about in the description, but I have heard that it has a lot to do with mental health, and I have enjoyed all of Neal Shusterman's other books that I've read, so I'm hoping that I would enjoy this one as well. The next book that I got is After by Anna Todd. This is a book that started out on Wattpad, and it is a Harry Styles fan fiction. I was obsessed with One Direction growing up, and if they were still a thing, I would still be obsessed with One Direction. Harry Styles being my favorite, so I am curious to read this book. I've heard lots of really bad things about it. The movie looks cheesy as hell, but I am very curious, and I think it's probably something that I'm gonna like, even though I know it's gonna be probably pretty cheesy. The next book that I got is Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. This book is kind of a meet cute where a boy and a girl meet, and it's kind of awkward at first, but they end up exchanging numbers anyways, and their relationship blooms purely over text message. I think that'll be a very interesting concept for a book because our society is so technologically based, and it does kind of take away some of the interaction that we have with actual humans in real life, and this is a love story that kind of examines falling in love text message. The next book that I got is The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Brashers. I think I read this in like middle school, but I think I was a little bit younger than the targeted audience at the time. Now I'm probably a little bit older than the target audience. I remember enjoying it, but I don't remember it very well, so I am going to give it another shot. I don't remember ever seeing the movie either. I think I've seen bits and pieces of it. If you don't know what this book is about, or if you've never seen the movie, it is about a pair of pants that fits 4 different friends with completely different body shapes, and I think it's basically a story about friendship more than about magical pants. And the last book that I got is Again But Better by Christina Riccio, who is a booktuber. I've heard very mixed reviews about this book. This one is about studying abroad in London. I have never been to London, but if I could go anywhere in the world, that's where it would be, and I think that this will be something that I really enjoy and maybe even kind of relate to in my reading. Those are all 30-some books that I got from Book Outlet's Boxing Day sale. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you think I should get to next, because I had an extremely hard time picking one last night, and my husband was not particularly helpful in figuring out what I want to read next. So let me know which one I should get to next. Thanks for watching. Bye.